And here we are at a brand new start. We are about to begin now a brand new subject in Tanya. We've made it pretty far, chapter 38. And brand new topic. And I want to first introduce the topic and get ready. It's a big class tonight, and it's a big chapter. It's a lot of big chapters. We've been talking about the power of mitzvahs. What is a mitzvah? Judaism is built around mitzvahs. And we learned, starting from chapter 35, 36, 37, developing this idea that a mitzvah is very deeply connected to the very ultimate purpose, why we exist here on earth. And it's to bring God down into this world. And it all happens by investing the resources from this world into a mitzvah, beginning with ourselves, our own body and our own animal soul. But the Alter Rebbe focused on the importance of the action of the mitzvah. A mitzvah, we learned, where the mitzvah's power is in this action, in the fact that it gets things done in this physical world, and the fact that it involves stuff from our physical world. The power of the mitzvah is all in its action. But one of the things that we did not talk about at all until now was the other side of a mitzvah, what we call in Hebrew kavanah. Kavanah. Take a look at the first page of the handout. We have here the Hebrew word kavanah, and that's going to be a key word we're going to have to remember for these next few chapters. I'm not going to translate it always. This can be one of the Hebrew terms that we have to carry with us. Kavanah is all about the mental and emotional investment that we put into a mitzvah. There's two sides to every mitzvah. There's the action. What are we doing? What are we trying to get done? So if it's prayer, we're saying these words. If it's studying Torah, it's studying these words of Torah. If it's doing a mitzvah, it's doing something. But then, where are you? What are you doing? What are you feeling? Are you invested? Where's your passion? And those are two very, very different sides of the equation. Both are critical. Both are a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to do the mitzvah, and there's also a mitzvah to have kavanah. But which one is serving what? Until now we learned it's all about action. The kavanah, the spirituality of a mitzvah, what you'll get out of the mitzvah emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We didn't care about that at all until now, right? All we cared about was that a mitzvah gets things done, and that's it. This chapter is all about kavanah. And dear friends, before we jump in, I want to warn you. Until now, we were learning about the practical side of the mitzvahs. Now we're going to learn about the spiritual side of the mitzvahs. And because we are learning about the spiritual side of mitzvahs, we need to expect to be learning a lot more spiritual ideas. And these are the next three chapters, 38, 39, and 40, I believe are the deepest chapters of Tanya, and I think the most abstract chapters of Tanya. And it's going to take more commitment, I think, from us to really, lean into it, to commit ourselves to learning it. Some of these ideas are abstract and nuanced, and it's going to demand a little bit more energy, I think, these chapters. But I think after so many classes of learning Tanya together, I think we're up to the challenge, no? So we're all gonna have to invest ourselves into the next. But if we invest ourselves, the payoff is huge. It's beautiful, very, very big idea. Some of the biggest fundamentals of Kabbalah, of spiritual thinking, is happening over here. So these are extremely critical chapters in Tanya and in the thought process of Jewish spirituality, of Kabbalah. But it's going to be more challenging. Let me warn you that right now. Okay. So they say a story. There was a couple. They've been married for 20 years. The wife says she wants to go to her rabbi to discuss their marriage. And the husband's shocked. The husband didn't think anything is going wrong with the marriage. And all of a sudden, she says, no, you got to come with me. I've got issues we got to discuss. They go to the rabbi. The husband's very confused. And the husband says, yes, how can I help you? And she says, listen, I've married this man for 20 years and I've just had enough. He doesn't love me. And the husband is so taken aback and says, what? I don't love you? When did I ever tell you that? She says, yeah, well, I never once heard from him that he loves me. He never once told me that. So he says, he's all offended, the husband says, don't you remember 20 years ago? We stood together under the chuppah. Yeah. Don't you remember that then I told you that I love you? She said, yeah. So you said, no. Did I ever tell you that I changed my mind? So the rabbi said, listen, I understand maybe you're not the most emotionally expressive person out there, but you got to share your love a little bit. So he told the husband, listen, you have to make it a point a few times a year to buy a gift for your wife to share the love that you have for her. Okay, it's not enough that you said it 20 years ago under the chuppah. You got it. Now, I want to give you two scenarios, two hypotheticals. You ready? One hypothetical. This husband, you see what type of guy we're dealing with over here. He's no monkey business. He's not looking to be all mushy, emotional. Straight. He's a businessman, cutting straight to the chase. The next day, his wife comes home from work, and she sees about 100 different Amazon boxes in front of the house. The husband says, listen, I went big. I bought you 100 gifts. Anytime you feel that you need a gift, just go to the garage. I'll have all the boxes there. Take whichever one you'd like. Like this, just keep the headache off from me. Is that good? It's horrible, no? What's the problem? The problem is it's beautiful. You bought gifts, but you've sucked the person out of the gift. The point is not the roses. The point is not some $50 thing. The point is that it's expressing your emotional state, right? It's not the gift. It's the person. So that doesn't do well. But here's another scenario. Imagine the husband says, "Listen, we're not going to waste money in this family. We're investing our money. We're investing it into our life savings, into retirements. Well, you want me to waste a few $100 a year on gifts? What is this? We're more mature than that. Anytime that I want to share with you a gift, I'll feel the emotion in my heart. I'll give you a gift in my heart. I'll mentally and emotionally think about it. But I need to actually go and buy roses and waste $50 and put on the table. That's a waste of money. I'll share it with you. I'll tell you how emotional I feel, and I'll feel it, but no gifts. What about that? Is that good? Also, right? Like we say in Yiddish, it's teugnish. It doesn't work out. This husband just can't get it right, huh? The point is that there's two sides of the coin. There's the action. You need the action. You need what are we doing over here? We're giving a gift. On the other hand, that gift needs to come along with what we're going to use the word kavana, mindfulness, an emotional investment, and the investment of the person, that the person is here. You could do a mitzvah. You could be praying. And even though you're saying the words, but mentally and emotionally, you're in Zimbabwe. I don't know where you are. You're somewhere else, not here. Right? It means you don't have the presence of mind. You're not mindful. And that's a certain tension, like we see here in the story. That's what the story is bringing out. There's a certain inner tension. Which one's more important? They're both important. They're both important. Which one is the most important? Till now we learned about why action is so important, so vital, so central. But we haven't focused yet on the role of kavana. And we all know that kavana is extremely important, the spiritual element of the mitzvah. And that's what we're here to do. Let's begin learning. Chapter 38, the very first page of our chapter. Chapter 38, the power of kavana. And we begin with part 1, which really is very, very in the theme that we've been learning about until now. The emphasis on action over intent. Very, very interesting. We have this tension. It's not a tension, but there's two components here. Action and intent. Ultimately, which one is most important? Let's read. Very, very interesting opening to the chapter. Says the Alter Rebbe, now, following everything that has been written above, we can understand well the ruling of Jewish law as prescribed in the Talmud and the halachic codes, that meditation does not count as recitation. Whenever there's a mitzvah to say something, you got to say it. Meditating it doesn't count for the mitzvah. What does this mean practically? This means that if you read the Shema only in your heart and thoughts alone, even if you did so with all your power of concentration, nevertheless, you did not fulfill the requirement to read the Shema, and you have to go back and read it. Very, very interesting law. You're looking at the Shema, you're looking at a prayer, and you're mentally and emotionally and spiritually there. And you're looking at it, and you're processing it, and you're thinking about it, and you're feeling it, everything. But you just didn't say the words. You didn't move your lips. You didn't get those words out of your lips. The law is, you did not do the mitzvah. Go back and read it. You got to read it. Not read it with your mind. You read it with your mouth. Continues the Alter Rebbe, and the same law applies to Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals, the benching, which is a biblical requirement, with the other blessings, which are rabbinic law, and with prayer. This is a law that applies across the board. All these must be verbalized in order to fulfill the mitzvah. So very, very interesting. Which one is more important? Which one is more critical? You need to have action. If you don't have action, you didn't do the mitzvah. Oh, what about the opposite? What happens if you had the action? You said the Shema, you said the prayer, but your mind and your heart was elsewhere. You were busy thinking about the fact that 696 just shut down today for 2 years. And it's such a headache coming and going. That's what I think about a little bit, no? I was late to pick up today because it was my first time realizing that all of a sudden I can't get on the 696. I'm like, so what happens then? You're saying the words, but your mind and your heart are not engaged here. What then is the law? The Alter continues. But in contrast, if you articulated the words of the Shema or prayer, etc., but you did not have kavanah to what you were saying, you see this? You said the words, but there was no kavanah, then you did fulfill the basic requirements of the mitzvah. And you don't need to go back and repeat the text, although it is not the ideal way to do the mitzvah. Fascinating over here. As long as you say the words, even if you have no intention, period, you said the words and you did the mitzvah. You don't need to go back and do it all over again. It's considered you did it. Now, it's not ideal. The ideal way to do a mitzvah is to do it and have the proper intention. But if you didn't, you still did it. Okay, we're on page 290. The only exception is the first verse of the Shema and the first blessing of the Amidah prayer, which do need to be repeated if you are not attentive to what you are saying. There's only two little parts of prayer where you do need to have intention, and yes, if you don't have the intention, you got to go back. But that's a minority. That's the exception to the rule. As the Talmud states in the second chapter of Tractate Barachos, the Talmud says like this: up to this point is the mitzvah of kavanah. From this point onward, the mitzvah is to read the words aloud. So ultimately, the mitzvah of prayer is to say the words. And this is everything: prayer, Torah study, and all mitzvahs. Ultimately, what reigns supreme in the world of doing mitzvahs is that you're doing it. Intention is important. There's a mitzvah. But if you don't have it, you still got the mitzvah. Why is this? Says the Alter Rebbe, the reason for this emphasis on speech is because the soul itself does not need any fixing through mitzvahs. We're not here. The goal of the mitzvah and the reason why we do mitzvahs is not for spirituality. Our soul does not need help with its spirituality. Our souls are A-okay. They're doing fine. We're not here to do the mitzvah to grow and fix something in the spiritual worlds. in the spirituality of our souls. Rather, the purpose is only to pull down God's light, to rectify the biological animal soul and the body. We are here for the body. We're here for the animal soul. We're here for the world. And that's why the part of the mitzvah that is most important, that we care most about, is the part that engages the body and engages the animal soul. Continues the Alter Rebbe. Therefore, it is crucial that the mitzvah involves the animal soul and the body through actual words spoken by the soul using the 5 organs of speech. If you're not using your mouth, your body is not involved in the mitzvah. Move that mouth. Oh, now it's a mitzvah that's engaging and bringing down that godliness to the world of the body and to the animal soul. And the same is true with the practical mitzvahs, which the animal soul performs through the body's other limbs. This is the goal. And this is really stuff that we've learned about in previous chapter. Ultimately, what matters most is that the mitzvah has an effect on the world, and that's why this is the part that matters the most. Okay. All that said is going to lead us now to this was the bridge. Now we're transitioning to the new topic. That is great. The most important part is the action. But let's not neglect the importance of the kavanah, this spiritual side of the mitzvah. And that's what the author is going to get to right now. Don't think that just because we've learned that the only thing that matters ultimately in the mitzvah is the action, that doesn't mean that the kavanah is chopped liver. The kavanah still matters a lot. The kavanah is still a mitzvah. And the kavanah has its own power. And that's what we're here to learn about. You ready? Part 2 of the chapter, page 290. Here we go. All right, Joel, what are the 5 organs of speech? That's a great question. Look in footnote number 4. The throat, lips, palate, tongue, and teeth. Whenever you speak, you are using all 5 of these tools. All 5 together, you're biologically moving all of them, and the soul is orchestrating all of them to work together so that you could articulate words. So words really involves the body and involves the biological animal soul, which is why, ultimately, it's all about getting words out of your mouth. Somebody told me that him learning Tanya just recently, I don't want to say his name because he didn't give me permission, but Mark Rosenzweig, okay, I'll say his name. I don't think he'll mind. Mark Rosenzweig told me that because of learning Tanya, his daily prayer in the morning takes him now 20, 30 minutes longer. Because he used to pray he didn't read it. He would look at the page and he would think about it, read it with your mind. But then he learned Tanya, you have to actually read it. So he says, you owe me money. You're making my davening take longer. I have less time in my day now because of you. So I was very proud to hear that, yes. I take guilty as charged that I make people daven longer. Because I teach them that it's not enough to just read it with your mind, you have to say it. And same thing when you study Torah. When you study Torah, the mitzvah is say the words. It's not enough to just reading a book, studying Torah. Either you have to be saying the words or you have to be listening to somebody else say words. But if you're studying Torah and no one's speaking, no. Torah, the mitzvahs are that things have to be happening in the real, practical, biological world. Okay. But now we're on to kavanah. Part 2, the greater power of kavanah. But nevertheless, says the Alter Rebbe, it has been said, and this is a quote from the great Kabbalistic books, prayer or other blessings without kavanah is like a body without a soul. Ultimately, you need the mitzvah. You need the action. But without kavanah, it's like a body without a soul. Okay, this is a quote from the great, great book of Kabbalah, the Shalah, the Shnei Luchot Habrit, and some other places as well. We have a very deep line over here. An idea in Kabbalah. And I want you to really take in this quote, because we're going to be talking a lot about this quote. We're going to be unpacking this right now. Prayer without kavanah is like a body without a soul. Okay. Now, before we learn more, I want to share with you something. Whenever you read a quote from Kabbalah, it's never simple. If you read a line from Kabbalah and it sounds simple, like, oh yeah, of course, I get that. No, you're misunderstanding it. It's never simple. There's always something extremely deep. Let's think about this quote over here. Prayer without kavanah is like a body without a soul. In other words, a mitzvah has two components. There's the action part, which is the body. There's the kavanah, the intent, the emotion, the passion, and that's the soul. Body and soul. The mitzvah and the kavanah is like body and soul. What does that mean? In what way is a mitzvah the body? And in what way is the kavanah the soul? It's a very deep idea. It's a very deep idea. And we have to learn it together. For the next half hour or 40 minutes, we're going to be working through this idea as the Alter Rebbe explains it. And it's deep. And it's nuanced. We're going to have to really put our heads to this. You ready? This is what the metaphor means, says the Alter Rebbe. It is just as all created beings in this world are composed of a body and a spirit, a body and a soul. Let's think about our world, the observable universe. Our world, this metaphor that we're going to be working with over here, that the Alter was introducing us to, is not speaking about anything spiritual, we're speaking about the observable universe we live in. The universe we live in is made up of two components: matter and energy. Matter is physical substance, the stuff. And then there's an energy, or there's a life force. So, for example, there's a tree outside. A tree has two components, a body and a soul. The body of the tree is its material. It's got wood, bark, twigs, leaves, fruit maybe. I'm saying the physical substance. But then there's also a life force within the tree. The life force is its life. A tree is alive. A tree is growing. A tree can reproduce. A tree has cycles of life. I'm saying it's a living thing. There's a force of life here. Same thing with an animal. I don't know, take a rhinoceros. A rhinoceros is matter and spirit. The matter, the body is its body, physical substance. Skin, flesh, bone, all this, it's physical stuff. And then there's the soul. What's the soul of an animal? It's force of life. It's alive. It has feelings. It can move. It could procreate. It has passions, it has interests, it has a nature, etc., etc. So we live in a world which is made up of two general forces, which we will call body and soul. Now, I want to make it very, very clear, and I want you to really listen to what I'm about to say. Right now, in this part of Tanya, we are not referring to the soul of the Jew, the neshama. We're not speaking about that. We're speaking about it on a much more elementary level. On a much more elementary level, the soul of life within this universe, pure biological universe. A tree has a life force. An animal has a life force. A fly has a life force. Humans have a life force. Nothing to do with souls. Meaning, right? It's not about the godly soul. We're simply speaking about everything within the observable universe is made up of two parts, body and soul. Body is its physical matter, and soul is the life force that gives it its characteristics and its movement beyond just being a static nothing. So everything within this world has a soul. That's what we're working with. So we have these two elements over here. Everything within this world has a body, everything within this world has a soul. How much soul does something have? That depends. This cup. Does this cup have a body? What's its body? Yeah, it has what it's made out of. That's body. It's matter. Does this cup have a soul? What would you say? Gail's saying no. Does this cup have a soul? Not really. Maybe just barely, but the soul doesn't make it do anything. The cup doesn't grow. The cup doesn't blossom. The cup doesn't feel. The cup doesn't reproduce. So anything that we would associate with a force of life, this cup does not have. It's inanimate. So maybe it has a soul, but it's like barely doing anything. Okay. Then we have a plant, vegetation. So there's the body, right? What the plant is made of. And then there's a soul. Does this plant have a soul? Oh, yeah. Plants have life. Plants are alive. They're doing stuff. They're growing. There's a force of life. Now, so the plant has more soul than a cup. What about an animal? An animal has even more soul than the plant. Because not just it could grow, it could move, it could make noises, it could reproduce. It has emotions. I don't think plants have emotions, right? And then you even have a human. Humans are on a whole nother level of soul. They could also speak. They could also think. All these other additional elements. So, how much soul is present in any given entity is different. But within our world, generally, there's bodies and there's souls. Which means bodies means simply the material, the substantive material of any given object, and the soul is its life force. We're not speaking here about the souls that are unique to the Jew, and which is an neshama, which is a piece of God. That's not what we're working with over here. We're speaking here in this part of Tanya on a much more elementary level. Does that make sense? Okay. The author explains this on page 291. 291. Says the Alter Rebbe, the soul we refer to here is the life force of every living thing and the spirit of every entity. There you go. We don't mean human soul or Jewish soul. We're referring to the life force of anything that's living, the spirit of every entity, and the soul of everything that has a spirit of life in its nostrils, which includes all the animals. There you have it. There you have it. So within our universe is body, there's soul. An ant has a body and a soul, right? Okay. Now, continues the Alter Rebbe. And God gives them all life, both body and soul, matter and spirit. The Alter Rebbe saying is, God is powering the very existence and the very life of everything, not just the souls, but the body. If there's a rock that is sitting in the ground outside, and that rock never moved in 100 years, and it will never move in 100 years, it has, right now, God is giving it life. God is giving it energy. Because if anything exists in our world, God is continuously energizing it, making it be. So it could be the greatest form of life, the greatest soul in our universe. And it could even be the most dead thing like a rock or a pebble or a speck of sand. Doesn't make a difference. God is giving life to everything. Continues the Alter Rebbe. God continually brings them into being, something from nothing, through his light and energy, which he pours into them. There's nothing in this universe that is not being right now actively being powered by God's light and energy to make them be something from nothing. Why? For also the physical body, and even completely motionless stones and dirt, contain light and energy from God, since otherwise they would return to being absolute nothingness, as they once were. So for anything to exist, even if it's not doing anything, even if it's dead, but for it to exist, there must be a fusion of God's energy, which is making that thing be. Now, different things are and operate on different levels. Some things simply stay put and are like motionless. Some things are plants, so they have a little bit more life. Some things have a lot of life like animals. Some things even have a lot more life like humans. But that doesn't make a difference how much life. The point is, God is giving life to everything. Nothing exists here without God's energy. So everything, from the greatest life form to the most lifeless and inanimate and smallest objects. Yes, of course, sun, moon, planets, everything. Yeah, of course, no. Everything within our universe, if it exists, God is powering it. So both body, both soul are being powered by God's energy. And here's our first key point in the metaphor. Says the Alter Rebbe, nevertheless, there is simply no comparison between the divine light and energy which shines in the body to the light and energy which shines in the soul, the life of every living thing. A rock needs energy to exist. But the Alter Rebbe says, just think about it. How much energy does a rock need to exist? Not much, because it's not doing anything. All it needs is energy to simply be. Once it is, it's done. Compare that to an elephant. An elephant is not just big in mass. It's so powerful, so dynamic. The amount of energy that an animal needs is so much greater than the amount of energy that plain bodies need. So even a rock needs energy. Even bodies need energy. But you can't compare to how much voltage, to how much power is needed to energize souls, life forces, versus inanimate body objects. Does that make sense? Like, think about it. You know, like those calculators that they never run out of battery? You know, those little cheap calculator. There's a battery in there, right? The battery, the calculator wouldn't work if it didn't have a battery. What type of battery does it have? It's a little round battery that has no real energy in it. But it's okay because the battery barely needs energy. It's pulling so little energy. So you have a little battery. Now compare the amount of energy that you need to operate a tremendous factory, like a plant. You know, some plants out there take unbelievable amount of energy. I was reading up about how they make the computer chips, like these microchips. Just the amount of energy that it takes to produce these silicon chips are crazy. It takes a crazy amount of energy to run these plants where they create these computer chips. So compare the energy that a battery, that a calculator needs, and the amount of energy that a plant needs. Can you even begin to compare? Calculator, it's a nothing. It's a tiny drop. It's drips of tiny little energy, and a plant is booming with energy, and it needs a crazy amount of energy to keep that plant going. So the Alter Rebbe says, in our universe, it's the exact same thing. Everything. This can over here that is right now empty, it's actually not empty. Put a bit more in my cup. Okay. But this can over here, this is a piece of tin. How much energy? There's nothing alive over here. There's no soul, just a body. There's no spirit, it's just matter. This thing needs no energy at all. Compare that to a soul. The souls in the universe, the soul of a plant, the soul of an animal, these are dynamic life forces. The amount of energy that it takes to power their existence is so much more. How does that sound so far? I'm saying it's a pretty simple idea, right? A greater life form, which is a lot more dynamic, pulls a lot more energy. It needs a lot more energy. Oh. But here's where things get a little bit exciting. You ready for this? But, even though you can't compare the energy between the bodies and the souls within our universe, they still get the exact same kind of energy. Or in other words, in quantity, one gets a lot more, one gets a lot less. But in the quality of the energy, it's the exact same type of energy. Let me explain this to you. It's an very interesting idea. When we speak about energy, there's two different controls. Think about it as two different controls, or two different axes. Right? It's like these charts, right? There's one axis, which is horizontal, one axis vertical. Two different controls. Or think about it like your car. If you want to control the temperature in your car. Okay, so you get in your car, it's freezing cold. So what do you do right when you get into your car? You turn up the heat all the way. How do you turn up the heat all the way? Is it one control or two controls? You have two controls. What are the two controls to turn on the heat? Number one, you have the knob. Okay, new cars don't have knobs anymore, really, right? But you have a knob, and the knob, you want to turn it all the way to the heat. Right? All the way to the red. That's one control, which is a temperature control. Then you have another control, which is the fan control. How much should be blowing? A lot or a little? So when I get into my car and I'm cold and I want to get warmed up, I turn both to the max. Max heat, max fan. And then eventually what happens a few minutes later? The car gets too hot. So now I want to tone down the heat. I have two different controls I could work with. One control, I keep it the exact same heat, but just it's blowing less. Less volume, less quantity. Or I could change the actual quality of the ear. I don't want the actual ear to be so hot. I want the ear itself to be cooler. So I have two separate controls over here. And what it is it's quantity versus quality. Two different controls, two different axes. There is quantity, there's quality. Let me give you a few examples for this. Should we do a few examples? All right, so we're surrounded here in Michigan by all the Great Lakes. And all the Great Lakes ultimately flow into Niagara Falls, correct? You know what's very interesting? By Traverse City, there's also falls. It's very small. The river, the lake, at the edge of the lake, it breaks off this tiny little stream. And it drips down until it eventually, tiny little drip. So if you go drive a few miles out east, you get the Niagara Falls. Or you can get the falls up north, which is a tiny little drip. Can you compare the falls, which is just dripping, to Niagara Falls? I don't know how many thousands of gallons a second are falling down, right? How many bathtubs of water are falling down every single second on the Niagara Falls? What is the difference between Niagara Falls and that exact same lake? Just at the edge of the lake, it falls into like a little stream. It's just dripping slowly. Is that a difference in quantity or a difference in quality? What do you say? Quantity or quality? Quantity, right? In other words, the water itself is the exact same water. Niagara Falls water and the water on this tiny little drip down a rock is the exact same water. Oh, it's only a matter of quantity. How much of that water is falling? But the water itself is exactly the same. So that's just quantity, not quality. So we have these different ideas, that there's two different controls. There's also two different controls, think about it. In sound, you have this as well, in music. Today, it's a big thing, especially if you're more techie. The quality of good music. Good music, you want to have it in high definition, high quality. Right? High quality music. If you have like Philharmonic music, but it's like low quality, like a low bit rate. You know what I'm talking? Am I talking Chinese over here? A bit rate is how much memory does 1 second of this file take up? And the higher quality a piece of music is, the more rich it sounds, and the less flat it is. Like especially when you have like a big orchestra, and you want to hear the nuances of every single musical instrument. You need to have a very high quality bit rate to be able to hear all that. Like what happens over the radio? When you hear music over the radio, what does it sound like? It's a very low quality. You can hear it. It sounds scratchy. All the sounds merge together and are very flat and dry. You know what I'm talking about? So that's quality. There's quality of sound. And then there's also the volume of sound. When you put the sound louder, is that changing the quality of the sound? No. Quality doesn't change if you put it louder or lower. It just amplifies it more. You got more of it here. There's more volume here. So there's quantity and quality, two totally separate things. One more example, okay? One more example. There are two kinds of windows in this room that I'm in. There's bigger windows, and then there's smaller windows. The smaller windows are about a quarter of the size of the big windows. So when it's light outside, there are two entrances of light through the windows. There's like 4 feet by 4 feet, and then like a foot by a foot. 1 square feet, or I don't know, 10 square feet, let's say. More. What is the difference in the light that is coming in from these two windows? Is it a difference in quality or a difference in quantity? It's a difference in quantity. They're both letting in the exact same sunlight. Oh, one window is allowing more sunlight to come through, one is allowing less sunlight to come through. But it's the exact same sunlight. Okay, but then you could have two windows, and one window has a clear pane, beautiful, clear pane of glass. And the other window has tinted glass and has all these other things that change the nature of the light. So when light comes in through both of these windows, that's a different light in qualitatively. One light is allowing a richer, higher quality light to come in. One is masking the light, filtering the light, and less coming in. So we just have to keep these two ideas in mind. That when we speak about energy and differences, that this gets more energy, this gets less energy, this gets greater energy, less greater energy. There's two totally separate controls here. There's two axes that we are operating on. Differences in quantity, how much or how little, and differences of quality, how great, how high quality versus how low quality. Is this making sense? We're doing okay so far? Should I give you one more example? See some of the different metaphors. I'll give it to you quickly, because I'm proud that I thought of this one, okay? There's two separate functions in the camera. Cameras operate with light coming in, being captured by I don't even know by what, the light has to go into the camera. It's the most sensitive part of the camera. There's a little window and the light goes in. But there are two separate controls on the camera. Number one is the aperture of a camera. What's an aperture? You could turn it, and it determines how large the hole should be, or how small the hole should be. In other words, how much light should come in. A big hole, more light's coming in. We could make that hole smaller and less light comes in. That's quantity. The aperture controls the quantity. How much light or how little light. But then there's another layer on the camera, which we call lenses. Or there's something else, I'm forgetting what it's called, like a box. It's called something box. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody here knows photography? It's either lenses or like a box. And that's like, no. What kind of light do we want should come in over here? Different lenses are change the way the light comes in. It like filters it. So it's very, very interesting. There's two separate controls here. There's the lenses, and you could change the lenses. And each lens has a different effect of how the light enters into the camera. That's quality. And then there's aperture. How much of that light should come in? That's quantity. Says the Alter Rebbe, In our world, different things get more or less energy. This cup is obviously getting little energy. An animal gets a lot of energy. The life force of a human gets a lot of energy. But even though some get a lot of energy, some get less energy, to the point that you can't even compare. It's so dynamic. It's so vast, so extreme, the differences, that bodies are getting such little energy, and the souls, the life force within the universe, are getting so much energy. Still, says the Alter Rebbe, even though there's differences in quantity, they're all getting the exact same kind of energy. This is the Alter Rebbe's point. Even though there's differences in the quantity, in quality, it's all the same. Let's read. Bottom of page 291. And again, it's a deep idea. It's a deep idea. Hopefully what I just shared with you makes it a little bit easier to digest. Okay, says the Alter Rebbe. Now, this is true even though the body and soul both receive the exact same kind of light. Which means there's big differences in the energy that a body and soul gets, but they're both operating with the exact same kind of light. Why? For both bodies and souls are entities within this world. Within this world, everything is operating with the exact same quality of energy. The only difference is in quantity. Okay, let's keep on reading. To explain. What does that mean? There's differences of quality and differences in quantity. Let's read. To explain. Before God's light and energy, from the breath of his mouth, enters into our world, it first needs to be masked and dimmed. We don't get raw divine energy, right? This was a big thing we've been learning a lot about in Tanya. All the energy that enters into our world needs to go through all these processes to constrict them and compress them and dilute them, masked and dimmed. All energy that comes into this world suffers equally from this masking and filtering of his light. Page 292. Now, how does this happen? How does the energy that comes down into this world become masked and filtered? Okay, so the Alter Rebbe continues. This occurs through the hiding of God's face. There's a masking of any divine property of the energy. And by a step-by-step downgrade through the chain of worlds, the innumerous profound diminishments of the divine light. So we don't get raw divine energy. We get divine energy, but as it went through this procedure that hides, that strips it away of any godly properties, and it gets downgraded going through the chain of worlds. The way it works is that as the energy descends through the whole vast chain of spiritual worlds, the energy slowly loses its power. It slowly loses its quality. Purposefully, God slowly is stripping away more and more and more. In the highest world, the world of Atzilut, the godly energy is powerful. Very high quality. It's very powerful energy, and you feel the divinity. You feel that it's godly energy. You go down another world, the energy lost some of its divinity, lost some of its quality. Another world, it's still godly energy, but a lot of that godliness was sucked out of it. Until you get to our world, where the energy is what we call the energy of Kalipat Noga. It's Kalipa energy. In other words, we've got energy here, but it's energy that does not carry a divine identity. Which is why we are operating on divine energy, but we don't feel it. Can you imagine if you took in a breath and you literally felt God is powering me? It would be a pretty awesome feeling, no? But we don't feel that. We are operating on divine energy, But because we are getting such low quality, deeply masked the divine energy, we just don't sense it. Continues the Alter Rebbe. This process continues progressively until the divine light has been dimmed so much that it can be received by Klipat Noga. Now Klipa is being powered by this divine energy to energize the overall infrastructure of this material world. Our world, everything within our world, is operating with this deeply manipulated, dimmed, and diluted energy, that it could energize this world in a way that this world does not feel godly. And all the things that this energy is powering don't feel that it's being powered by divine energy. So everything within this world is getting its flow from Klipat Noga. Okay, the Alter Rebbe continues. This is one more little point. Klipat Noga powers all the permissible and pure things in this world. And then from and through Klipat Noga, energy flows also to the impure Klipot. It then even goes down another layer, powering the impure things within our world. For as we learned above, Klipat Noga is an intermediary bringing energy from the holy realms to the impure Klipot. Okay, this last paragraph was on the more technical side. Let's not get too bothered by that. The point is, even though different things within this world, some are getting a lot more energy. It takes a lot more energy to power them. And some things only need a very little amount of energy to power them. But that's all in quantity. In quality, they are all operating with the exact same energy. Concludes the Alter Rebbe. Now, here's the point. Now, even though both bodies and souls in this world share the same quality of energy, nevertheless, the quantity of the light, which is the flow of divine energy, that God shines and energizes through this filter, is not the same in all recipients. So in quality it's the same, but in quantity it's not the same. In some cases there is less energy, and in others more manifestation of energy. Okay, we're stopping here mid-idea. We just learned a big metaphor. It's a very deep metaphor. And the metaphor is here to teach us that two things could be working with the exact same kind of energy, but one is sucking, one is pulling a lot more of that energy, and one is pulling only a little bit of that energy, even though they're both working with the exact same kind of energy. Bodies and souls within our universe are both working with the exact same kind of energy. The souls don't have a higher quality energy to work with, but they get a lot more of that energy. That's the metaphor. Now, why is this relevant? We'll learn next week. So we have to really hold on to this thought, this metaphor, which is very profound, but it's also pretty simple. And somehow this metaphor is going to give us a whole new insight into the power of kavanah vis-a-vis action and what its role is in the mitzvah. And with that, dear friends.
Rabbi?
Yes, Joel.
Okay, so I want to get something clear so I understand it. This decrease of power, of energy, is that what is called Zimzum? Or am I saying it right or wrong? Zimzum?
Oh, Tzimtzum. Oh, yeah. Do you want to get it? You want to get into the? Okay, Tzimtzum is quality. Tzimtzum is quantity.
Quantity. Well, that's what this is. It's a decrease in quantity. Okay, and
quality is another thing. Quality is called Hester Panim, the hiding of God's face. That changes the quality. But
the Kalipa Noga is everything on this world or in the universe that can be changed to godliness from Kalipa.
Mm-hmm.
But the plain Kalipot, is there a Kalipot that cannot be transformed into?
That's
God?
right. But the Alter Rebbe said that even those totally impure klipot, they get that energy through klipat noga.
through Kalipa
So
Noga
ultimately, everything within this universe is
from
operating
Kalipa
with
Noga.
Klipat Noga energy.
Okay,
Either
okay,
directly or maybe there's another step in the middle that makes it
okay,
even.
okay. That clarifies it a little more
Sure,
for me.
sure. All right. Deep stuff, no?
Very deep. Good lecture.
Good lecture. Until next time, dear friends. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
So I get,
Yes, Leigh, go
I
ahead.
don't understand why do some get more and some get other and less? Your last point that you were saying.
It's very simple. Let's say the exact same way it works in your house. Your alarm clock needs a lot less energy than your vacuum cleaner and your oven.
No, you mean, I think for me it sounded like you're talking about individuals.
No, just in general, bodies and souls. Bodies are bodies. Just plain material needs a lot less energy for its existence than life forces, which need a lot more energy. For a rhinoceros, the rhinoceros's body, for its body to exist, is only a minimal amount of energy. But for its life force, for its soul, that takes a lot more energy. Because it's not just a lifeless piece of hunk of flesh, but it's a little bit more of a spiritual force. There's a life.
You're not talking about the godly soul.
No, not the godly soul. No. Let's keep it fully in our universe.
Energy, right.
Just the energy of things, right.
Okay.
So we can understand. In Disney World, they have animatronics. Right? You know what animatronics are? How much energy do you think an animatronic takes up?
I don't know.
Is it the same level of energy that it takes to keep a light bulb going?
I don't know what it is.
An animatronic is like a moving thing, like a.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what an animatronic is?
No, I never heard of that. No.
Like a robot, like a moving robot.
That takes as compared to what now?
Or a light bulb.
Well, it takes much more.
It would take more for a robot to be controlled.
Exactly. So they're all being powered with the same kind of energy, the same electricity.
Right.
But to get one operating takes a tremendous amount more of energy.
I see.
It's a very simple point, essentially. For God to keep a rock going, it takes a lot less energy than for God to keep a lion's life going.
Right.
A lion's life takes a lot more energy.
Yeah. That clears it up a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and then on your point about prayer, of saying the words, saying them, doesn't the level, the volume matter?
The more soul, the more energy you put into the words, the more of your body is invested in it. Yeah.
So like the Shemona Esrei, you're supposed to say it quietly, right?
Oh, so right, the volume. Right, so you're not saying it loudly, but you could still say it with a lot of even physical investment, not through screaming, but through a lot of presence of body and mind, and
Okay, and then kavana is not intention, right?
Right, it's a little bit more than just intention.
Okay.
It's an emotional investment as well while you're doing the mitzvah. We'll see what kavana looks like towards the end of this chapter. We'll get a little bit more of a definition.